Hi guys, this is a near barn find, and it's, as you can hear, near a barn. The actual barn is over there, and they were sitting out here for just a few months short of about 10 years. And it's also near barn because it's not really a find. I was the one putting it down here 10 years ago, and I've just put in a battery, and I want to see if it actually starts now. 10 years, guys. 10 years this has been sitting here. It's quite a sad and sorry state, as you can see. It's absolutely, well, worn out. But now I want to see if I turn the key. Well, nothing seems to happen. Oh yeah, there's an oil light. And actually, something is happening. I'm not saying it will start, but I want to find out. The fuel inside is actually 10 years old. Well, this story is not actually a happy ending because it won't start just now. But actually, the fact that it turns over and it sounds good, it means that it will start. Of course, it will need some fuel, which is 10 years old in the tank, probably contaminated. So if I would top it up with fuel, it would probably start, and the engine did not seize up despite all the frost and everything. This is Hungary, so we do get minus 10-15 degrees in the winter, and it looks like it has survived block wise. So I'm hopeful, but it will need fuel, definitely need fuel. I actually topped up with water, which is not the best thing. It would need coolant, so I will need to drain this before the winter again. And yeah, so for those of you who are actually interested, this is a Volvo 740, and I'm wearing a Volkswagen t-shirt, which is not a mismatch in this case, because this has a Volkswagen 6-cylinder diesel engine, which was common at the time in the 1980s up until 1991 or so. And this is a van or lorry engine actually. 6 cylinders, about 100 horsepower, 120 if it has intercooler. And if you want to know about this engine, and if you are thinking about buying one of these, I think very good Volvo 740 series, what you need to watch out for is what kind of engine you're getting it with. So this 6-cylinder is D24T TIC, and codes like that it goes with. Later they had EGR cooling on it, which of course changed the engine designation. But the ones which are very reliable and survived it all probably is the D24, which has no turbo on it. Then you have the D24T, which has a turbo. Those are the less reliable engines. And you had the TIC, which had turbo and intercooler. Now the reason being is a 6-cylinder engine is a very long engine, and the turbo pushes in the hot air in the middle two cylinders, which causes the head to warp. And the remedy for that either is not having turbo, which is the under 100 horses kind of power. Those engines survived quite well. Or having turbo with an intercooler. Nowadays, the manufacturers do not let out engines with turbo without intercooler because they realized the hot air will kill the engine anyway. But back in the day, that was the only way to sort of modulate the power of the diesel engine. So you had no turbo, small turbo, big turbo with intercooler, and that middle way, which most people went for, the small turbo without intercooler, is actually not a reliable setup because, as I said, the hot charged air will need to be cooled down, otherwise it will kill the engine with head warp. So these engines were notorious for having, after rehaul, just one trip and going bust under one trip, because if you pushed it to 100 miles an hour, it could cook the head on under one trip. So yeah, these are very good, very reliable cars. Rust is present by now, but the ones untouched, they still not rusting actually, which is a kind of miracle. If you look at a 10-15-year-old Ford, you'll find more rust than a 1986 Volvo. Also, the production had suffered some corner cuts, let's say. So from 1989, the galvanization of the chassis is not as good as before 1989. So up until 1988, I think, the chassis is very well galvanized. After then, it went a little less reliable in terms of corrosion. And the engines, again, I would go for a pre 1989 series because those did not have EGR valves, and these pre-chamber engines are not very good in environmental perspective. So there's no point of having an EGR valve and things like that, which causes a lot of problems with these engines as well, but not so much as new ones, but problems nonetheless. So yeah, and the one thing, if you are not used to old diesel engines, you have to look out for, apart from having coolant and fresh fuel, which of course in my case failed the whole project now, is the glow plugs. Without glow plugs, pre-chamber engines do not start. It doesn't matter if you pull them, push them, turn them, how long, whatever. Pre-chamber needs a glow plug. So this has 6 of them. Up until 3 glow plugs operational, it will start very hard, but it will start. Under 3 glow plugs or even 3, it will struggle or won't start at all. So, but as long as you have 6 glow plugs, you have compression, and you have either the non-turbo or the turbo intercooler engine, which two engines are the most reliable, then you are probably able to save this and probably able to start even 30 years or 40 years after it was released from the factory, which I think nowadays is on like unseen kind of reliability. And reliability wise, these cars had an expected lifetime, which the manufacturer actually stated in the brochures, and they estimated about 23.6 years of lifetime out of these cars, which, having 4 of these altogether, I can report that their estimation was actually spot on. After about 24 years, everything started to go bust on these things, including engine mounts and things like that. But up until that date, it was very, very reliable, and it does have to do with the actual age, surprisingly, instead of the mileage, which I kind of experienced in my quite numerous fleet of numerous cars in my fleet. That I had BMW E36, which was only 40,000 miles on it, and I have a Mercedes Sprinter which has like 300,000 miles on it. Of course, the age difference is massive as well. The Sprinter was only 5 years old, the BMW was about 30 years old, and still the older is always more prone to issues and maintenance things you have to run on them, even though it runs so little mileage. That E36 I had only had 40,000 miles. It had a lot of problems, though it has to be said it was still a very reliable car, but I cannot see much of a difference between mileage. I have T4 transporters. One of them has 360,000 kilometers, the other one has 700,000 kilometers, and the higher mileage is actually the more reliable, because owners who use their cars for the intended purpose that it is driven, they tend to spend on them and tend to actually, you know, spend maintenance and repair, not sparing costs, whereas a guy who would not use their car as much would probably just cut corners and not being able to justify spending so much on their cars. So this is a shout out for higher mileage cars, that just writing them off because they have higher mileage, you might actually making a mistake in the judgment, because I go for higher mileage cars all the time. In my experience, they are not just being less reliable, but they are actually better and more reliable than their lower mileage counterparts. So that's my 2 pennies. I'm not gonna start this now. I'm not very much interested whether if it works or not. I know it works because that's how it was put down. It would have been a miracle to start it up with a 10-year-old diesel fuel in the tank anyway, which probably has condensation and water in it by now. So, or maybe actually it's ran out of fuel. I don't know. Honestly, 10 years ago I put it down. It was working then, but all the tires are deflated and everything. So yeah, that's it for today. And if you are into Youngtimers and these kind of things, I would suggest go for higher spec, better chassis condition, but the mileage, I would leave it alone, and I would just say that is absolutely not a very important thing on these, because after 20-25 years of service, these cars will need everything replaced anyway. Coolant radiator, things like that, things are getting older, and the planned obsolescence is with us ever since the 80s, because the reason why Volvo was able to say that the life expectancy of these cars is 23.6 years is actually planned obsolescence. They designed it this way. The 240 series of Volvo before this maybe was less prone to this kind of experiment, but by this time the 740 came out, they knew exactly what things will break and how it will break, and it was actually engineered that way, which is kind of understandable. And 23.6 years is a very reasonable life expectancy out of a car like this. I wish manufacturers today would aim towards that kind of goal, and not the 10 years and 150,000 kilometers they do now. That is one of the reasons why they say you do not have to change oil in automatic transmission, so that's an answer for that, because in 150,000 kilometers and 10 years it will last the lifetime of the car. That is fact, but the lifetime of the car is about 10 years and 150,000 kilometers, so you might want to reconsider that not changing oil kind of suggestion from the manufacturer in the gearbox if you want your car to last longer. Again, this is about automatic transmissions, not robotic and not manual. See you guys.